All right, it looks like we have a few people in now, um, and I don't want to take up too much time. So, my name is Kelly. I'm a librarian here at Santa Clara County Library District. Thank you very much for joining us today with our webinar, Introduction to Mango Languages. And this is our trainer for today, Cruz Pardo. Go ahead and Cruz, thank you for joining us.
Let me unmute myself first. Thank you so much for joining me today and for hold on, let me just double check and make sure that I am sharing the right window here. All right. You should be looking, if I'm sharing the right one, you should be looking at the Santa County Library. Is that what you're looking at?
Yep, we can see the website. Thank you.
Okay, perfect. All right. I always have issues sharing the right window, so I want to make sure that I'm sharing the right one. Okay, so I want to introduce myself very quickly. My name is Cruz, and I'm your account manager here at Mango Languages. So I'm going to be the training. I'm going to be doing the Mango training with you today, and basically, the purpose of today's training is just to show you how to access the resource through the library, how to log in, and then a little bit about how you can start using Mango to start learning a language. So, and obviously, if you have any questions, we'll have a little bit of time at the end for that as well. So the first thing I want to show you is how to find Mango languages by first going to your library's website. So right now, hopefully you're familiar with the library's website. We're at the Santa Clara County Library, and if you scroll down, they made it very easy for you to find Mango languages. So here's a little bit of how many languages we offer, and then right next to it, they did a really good job by also adding that direct link to American Sign Language. So as you probably already know, your library also decided to add American Sign Language as a language that you can learn with Mango Languages. And I'm going to show you in a little bit how you can access the American Sign Language. But if you use this link that's right next to the Mango Language link, it will take you directly to the American Sign Language without going through the whole Mango Languages program. So, all right. So how do you access Mango Languages? So you can click on these. This is going to take you to a page where it shows you, has a little information about Mango languages, how many languages we offer, has a little video that kind of shows you a little bit about how to get started. And if you go to Access Now, it's going to take you to the page where it's going to require to log in to your library account using your library card number and your PIN. Okay, so once you do that, you're going to look at something like this. This is the library's Mango login page for your library. So you should see your library's name at the very top. So you can just go to sign up, and we're going to ask you for an email password combination. One of the new things that we do have right now is that we do require your password to be 12 characters long, and then it needs to contain an uppercase, lowercase, and a number or a symbol. But as long as you give us an email password combination, you should be able to sign up for Mango and create a profile. The other option we have here is also to use Mango as a guest. So what that means is that when you go to use Mango as a guest, we're going to allow you to access the program, have access to everything. So that way you can kind of see how it works, what we have available, in case, you're like, I don't know if I want to create an account. I kind of want to see how it works before I commit to signing up, right? If you don't want to do that, you just kind of want to see how it works first. You can use Mango as a guest, and that is going to take you to, first select a language. And you should be, like I said, you should be able to access any language you want. You can stay as long as you want. The only thing is, to remember that this is not creating a profile, so we can't keep track of your progress. We were not going to be able to, see that maybe finish a whole lesson or two in Spanish until you create a profile, right? Once you're ready to commit and learn a language, you can go back and create a profile, so that way we can keep track of your progress. So just remember that, but that is an option that you have. All right. So once log in, create an account, do all of that. The first thing that that we're going to ask you to do if you are a new user is going to be to select a language, right? You can select some of the languages that we have available here, or you can go to see all, and that's going to take you to all of the languages that we have available. So let's just say, so American Sign Language is listed here, but let's just say we want to learn Spanish. Spanish Latin American. So if you're a new user who never used Mango, it's first going to take you to the screen where you can select the language to start with. Or if you are a returning user, let's say you already have a Mango account and you want to go back and log in, it's going to take you to the last language that you were previously learning, right? So let's say last time I logged in, I was learning Spanish. So when I logged in, it's going to take me exactly back to Spanish where I left off. So that's the cool thing about it, always remembers where you left off, right? So as you can see right now, we're in the Spanish Latin American course. You can see it because it says up here. And then if you want to go back to, selecting a different language, you can just click on the icon. So let me show you how I did that again. Click on the little icon up there. So every language has a little icon at the top left-hand corner. That will take you back to all of the languages that we have available, right? So your most popular languages, or the most recent language that you learn is always going to be listed at the very top. So in this case, because we were looking at Spanish, it says, okay, recent language, Spanish. It will have up to 5, your most recent 5 languages. So as you learn different languages, your top 5 languages, most recent languages are always going to be listed at the very top. Then right after that, we do have the most popular languages. So these are a list of all the most popular languages that we have available. And then right underneath that, we have all of the other languages available. They're all listed here in alphabetical order. So as you probably already know, we do have 70 different languages, world languages. And we also have 20 different English courses. So let me go to the English courses just in case you have a friend or you're interested in learning English. When you click on the English course, the first thing that we ask you is, what is your native language, right? So what is your mother tongue? So then you go in here and you select the language that you speak, so your native language. And based on your native language, we're going to give you the specific English course that we have available for you, right? So if you're a Spanish speaker, let's say, for example, then we have a specific English course for Spanish speakers. And you're going to see why we have that in a little bit, because a lot of the instructions that we have, grammar notes, culture notes, things like that, they're going to be in this case, because you're learning English, is going to be in your native language. All right, so let's go back to the language list. I want to point out a few things. So for some other languages, we also offer different dialects. So for example, as you can see, for Arabic, we do have Egyptian, Iraqi, Levantine, and then we also have a modern standard one. And then for other ones like French, let's go to French here. We have the French, Parisian French, which is the standard one, right? And then we also have the French Canadian one. If you're interested in going to Canada, we do have a separate one for the French Canadian one, which is, in this case, it will be like your Quebecois French. All right. So let's go back to the dashboard. I want to show you, let's say we're learning Spanish. Let's go back to Spanish again. And this is how the dashboard is going to look like for every language course that you select, right? So we're going to go over what you see in here and what we have available here. So the first thing I want to start with is this start learning button. Once you start learning a language, it's going to say resume learning button. Right now, we haven't started anything, right? So it says start, but once you start learning, it will say resume learning button. So this basically allows you to pick up right where you left off. So let's say you maybe finish a lesson or two, you say resume, and it will take you back where you left off, right? The other reason why we have this resume learning button is because it also syncs with all the different platforms that we have for you, the platforms that we have available for you to access Mango. So we do have the website version of Mango. We also have the iOS app and the Android app. So the resume learning button is going to basically sync everything, and it's going to allow you to pick up where you left off, whether you are using the web, one of the apps, whether it's iOS or Android. So that's the helpful thing about the button that we have here. Right underneath that, we have a daily review system section, right? So as you move, through the course, we're going to have key concepts that are going to pull into the resume learning, the daily review, sorry, and put into the system, right? So the daily review system has what we call a space repetition algorithm inside of it. So what that means is that it's going to either allow you to speed up or slow down based on your ability to learn things, right? So if you need a little bit more time to learn things, that's what it's going to allow you to do by reviewing certain things that you want to review. So it's going to give you basically the right amount of repetition that you're going to need in order to, learn your new language as you're going through the lessons. So that's what we have that here. It comes with vocabulary and things like that. So again, based on how much time you want to spend there, and if you need more time as you're going through the different lessons, that's basically what it's going to allow you to do. So that's the daily review system here. Again, because we haven't started learning any of the lessons, we don't have any vocabulary words or anything here. But as you're going through them, you're going to see that it's going to say 54 vocabulary words, and then it's going to have like a few other review things that your concepts and things that you need to go over. Okay, and then right underneath that, so right here, we have something that is called the placement. This is a placement test, basically. So this is a great spot for people who maybe, let's say, you had a little bit of Spanish in college, maybe in high school, right? Maybe it's been a while, maybe you had it in high school, and you want to start learning Spanish, but you don't know where to start, and you don't want to maybe waste your time by, starting with, how to say hi and, how to greet people, right? Because that's too easy for you. You know how to do that. So you can start with the placement test, and basically based on how well you score in the placement test, the system, the program is going to tell you where maybe you should start within the program based on, how well you do. So the placement test is a great place to start for those of you who maybe had a little bit of Spanish, or let's say you're learning, Japanese. Take it and see where it might tell you to start. All right. So right underneath that, we have, let's see, where's my mouse? Right here. So right underneath that, we have the main units of content. So this is basically where we have all of the content, and we'll come back to that. And right underneath these main units of content, we have specialty courses. So for our top most popular languages, which I kind of show you where that's located on the when you first have to select a language, those are most popular languages. So for those languages, which are, I believe there are like 10, 12 of them, we have extra courses. And these courses, we call them the specialty units. And they're just extra courses that basically focus on specific things. And based on the language, sometimes we have more, we have less, and they're also like different topics. But for instance, here for Spanish, we have a specialty course in medical text talk. So this text talk is more for if you want to learn a little bit more about vocabulary, grammar that has to do with the kind of words that you use when you're texting family, relatives, that kind of stuff. That's a great one. Business, romance, legal, and we even have one that's called Spanish for Librarians. I know for other languages, for instance, for Irish, we have a specialty course on St. Patrick's Day. For French, we have a specialty course on wine and cheese. So if you're traveling to France and you want to learn a little bit more vocabulary phrases that have to do with ordering wine and cheese and talking about it, again, that's one that I highly recommend. And then for German, we do have one on Oktoberfest. So again, the specialty courses is just a great way to learn extra vocabulary, extra phrases, extra things to focus on specific things, right? So the specialty courses are great. Again, they're extra material that we have available. However, we do recommend that you first start with the main units of content, just because if you go straight to the specialty courses, again, they're specific, they focus on specific topics, right? So they might be a little bit hard for you to maybe go through them if your Spanish level is very low, maybe. Okay. So let's go back to the main units of content now. I want to, go a little bit more and talk a little bit more about them. So as you can see, most courses that we have available, I keep losing my mouse here. Most courses that we have available have at least, they have five, mainly most of them have five main units of content. And then those units are then they're listed, or they have chapters within the units, and then those chapters have lessons. So that's how we organize them. So as you can see here for Unit 1, we have the chapters, 4 different chapters available, and then those chapters are broken down into smaller sessions or lessons that they're about, they're smaller bite-sized lessons that they're about 10 to 30-minute lessons. So for Unit 1, Chapter 1, Lesson 1, I want to click on it and show you how that works so you can kind of start to see, how we start putting these lessons and chapters together. So I'm going to click. Actually, before I do that, I wanted to show you something else. I am getting ahead of myself. The other thing that I wanted to show you about the chapters is that we do have listening and reading activities at the end of each chapter. And again, kind of like the daily review system, this is just basically to allow you to, let's say you started with, you finished the first two lessons or maybe you finished the whole chapter and you're like, I don't remember anymore everything that I learned in that chapter. When you go to the reading and listen activities, that's a good reminder of what you went through and what you learned through the chapter. And then we also actually have a whole recap. So you can go and do the recap if you would like to, in case you would like to just kind of do a quick little, refresh your memory about everything that you learned in the chapter before you go to chapter, maybe, start with chapter 2. So those are all different things that we have available, different features that we have available to kind of help you retain the information that you're learning throughout the chapter. And then again, the recap. So those are the things that we have here. And we have a vocabulary section, again, vocabulary that you're going to be learning throughout the whole chapter. The other thing I want to point out is that, as you can see, with the units of content, we focus on, we try to focus on things that are going to really help you get out there and be able to speak the language that you're learning, right? So we focus on very practical topics, right? That you might want to learn as you're learning a language. So for instance, for Unit 1, Chapter 1, you start with salutations and small talk. Then you learn about, language and origins. And then as you move on to Unit 2, you're going to learn about places and directions, currency in food and drinking culture, transportation in case you're traveling. So again, we try to make it really practical and teach you things that, are going to be able to help you to get into, be able to use the language that you're learning and be able to use it in real everyday conversations, real life conversations, right? That you hopefully will have as you're learning Spanish. Okay, so now let me take you to Unit 1, Chapter 1, Lesson 1, so you can kind of see how we start basically putting, all these courses together. You're going to see a little tutorial about, how we put things together. So we're going to skip the tutorial for now because I'm going to give you that tutorial. All right. So at the beginning of each lesson, at each chapter, each lesson, you're going to see, a list of conversation goals and a list of grammar goals. Just so you can kind of get an idea of what you're going to be learning in each lesson, right? So for instance, in Unit 1, we tell you that some of the conversation goals that you're going to be learning about is, how to express gratitude, how to greet people, how to say goodbye. We also give you the grammar notes in case you're interested in see what what you're going to be learning. So for instance, learn when to say tu and when to say, which one is proper and one is improper, right? So that we give you that at the beginning of each lesson so you know what we're going to be covering. Okay, so the next slide that I'm going to show you is going to be basically a full conversation in the target language. So in this case, it will be Spanish. And what you're going to see is going to be basically a full conversation between two native speakers in this case. And throughout the chapter, you are going to learn to have basically this, we're going to give you an example of this conversation. You're going to be able to, if you were to go through the whole lesson, you will be able to learn this conversation, how to have this conversation and other conversations, right? If you were to continue, just like the one that you hear, surrounding the theme, right? So surrounding the theme, how to express gratitude, how to greet people of each chapter, right? So let's move forward so you can kind of see how each chapter begins with the conversation. And then we start breaking down basically that conversation piece by piece so you can understand it and start to see how we put together, how you can have these conversations in your native language and how the phrases kind of start. We give you the structure so you can kind of see how it starts. We start putting together the pieces. So let's start the conversation so you can kind of see what I'm talking about, and then we'll move forward from that. All right. So again, you will be able to understand this conversation if you were go through the whole lesson. One of the things that I want to highlight here is that you can, replay the whole thing if you would like to. You can pause it. This will be able to allow you to pause it if you want to pause it at any time. You can replay each little sentence at any time as well. So I'm actually going to go out of here and I'm going to go to, I think is number 4, because I want to kind of give you an example of how we start breaking out the sentence and the sequence that we use for that. So again, every lesson starts with the grammar goals, and conversation goals. All right, so one of the things that I want to point out here, and that's why I went here, is because as you can see here, we have something that we call semantic color mapping. So what you see here, all these different, colors that you see here, is to help you basically start visually seeing, which word correlates, I can talk right now, which each other one, right? So it helps you start to visualize the order of the words and the grouping of the words in your new language, right? So you can see that que correlates with what, dia with day, frío with cold. So you can kind of start to see the structure of it, right? And it helps you visualize the correlation of each word. The other thing that you can see here is that we have also phonetic pop-ups. So it helps you with the pronunciation. And then if you click on it, you can also hear it at a more slower articulated pace. So I'm going to click on it so you can kind of see what I'm talking about. All right. And then the other thing that we also have, and I always like to point this out just because I think it's a cool feature that a lot of people forget that we have it, is this voice comparison tool. So it's this little icon that looks like a microphone. So let me show you how that works. So right now we have the phrase that we're learning, que día tan frío. We have a native speaker. So this is the narrator, which is the native speaker. All right. And I'm going to record myself basically repeating the phrase, que día tan frío. All right. So we have my recording and you can move it around so you can kind of, put it right next to the native speaker. We can listen to the native speaker, my recording, and then also play both of them together so we can kind of see where we maybe might be mispronouncing, things. So again, that is a very cool feature that we have available for those people who really want to practice on the pronunciation. And it is a great tool that kind of helps a lot, with that. So I wanted to make sure that you guys knew about that. The other thing I wanted to show you guys really quickly is that we also have a lot of grammar notes like this one. So we think, the grammar, there's a background noise is playing to you right now what's going on. That's why I stopped talking. So we have a lot of grammar notes and culture notes, and the grammar notes are to basically help you every time we feel like there's an explanation that needs to happen because it might be a little confusing. You're going to see a grammar note throughout the whole program, right? So for instance, this one, this is a great example where it says, did you know that that hola, even though it starts with the letter H, is not pronounced in Spanish, right? So the H is always silent in Spanish. So that's a great, grammar note that I just wanted to show you that you're going to see things like that throughout the whole program. And then we also have culture notes like this one. So again, we think that the culture is a great way to learn a new language. And if you don't understand, you don't know the culture of the language that you're learning, you're not going to be able to properly communicate and learn the language, right? So we do also have, again, culture notes like this one that kind of shows you, some of the things that might be different from what we know here in the US, right? So for instance, in Spanish, buenas noches, which is, good evening, can be used as both a greeting and a farewell. So again, a lot of things like this that you're going to see throughout the program. I know we're running out of time, so one of the things that I wanted to show you here is that under the Explore tab, we do have a lot of really cool features now that we can just keep adding. So the Explore tab is basically a place where you can find a lot of alternative ways to learn a language and just extra materials that we have for you to learn a language. So for instance, if you love to read and love to learn about culture, the interactive reading passages is a great way for you to learn about culture and also, be able to learn more about the language that you're learning. So the reading passages are basically short little stories that you can read that focus on cultural things based on the language that you're learning, right? So in this case, it's Spanish. So you have a little story about arepas, which is a Colombian and Venezuelan dish, or about, music culture in Latin America. So all of these stories are short stories, but they're also labeled here based on your level of Spanish. So we have, you can see that this is for beginners, advanced, intermediate learners, and so on, right? So that way if you're a beginner learner, you can just focus on reading the stories that are beginning level. You can also listen to the whole story if you would like to, kind of like an audiobook, or you can read it yourself. If you come across a word that you don't know, you can just click on it and it tells you what it means in English. You should be able to also listen to the pronunciation. It tells you if it's masculine, feminine, singular, noun, or so on. And you can also click on using the word as a sentence, so you can kind of see in a different way, right? How to use it in a different way. Another thing is that you can add it to your vocabulary list. So I'm going to go ahead and do that just so I can show you how that works. So we have a lot of short, different interactive stories here. We also have something called Mango Music. Same thing as the short stories, but this is just a music, music version of it. These are stories and music that our linguist team has created. So these are obviously not stories that you're going to see online, or music that that are popular on, Apple Music or anything like that. But again, it's a fun way of learning a language, and it's a great way to learn a lot of, vocabulary and to practice the language that you're learning. So let me go, and we have a bunch of other things in here, right? Mango Reader is it's another great tool. It kind of works like Google Translate. It's a Google Chrome extension that you can add to your computer, and it's also available with iOS if you want to add it to your phone. It's not available with Android yet. We're working on that. But basically, if you come across a word that you don't know, and when you're searching online, you can highlight it, and again, it will tell you what it means in English, how to pronounce it, and you can add it to your vocabulary list as well. Last thing I want to show you here under the vocabulary list, this is where we have all of the vocabulary that you're learning. If you go here, again, resume learning button, right? I've been talking about that in the daily review. That's obviously stuff that you're learning throughout the chapters, the lessons as you're going through them. Then we have something called Mango Vocabulary. This is just supplemental words, supplemental vocabulary that we have available in case you want to learn the numbers, the colors, things like that. And then we have My Vocabulary. So when you start adding words that you want to practice to your vocabulary list, this is where it's going to go, to My Vocabulary. And you can create your own list if you would like to. We just added this word, music. So this is where it's going to go, right? And you can practice by either having a list of words that you want to have here. You can practice from English to Spanish, or from Spanish to English, or you can practice with a flashcard. So right here, practice with flashcard. It's going to basically, we have also like an algorithm here where it keeps track of what you're getting right, what you're getting wrong, and it will keep repeating the ones that you're getting wrong. And the last thing I want to show you here is if you go to right here, it says guest user, but in this case, it will have your name. If you go here, which is the settings button, oh, it's not letting me do that because I don't have an account yet, but it's going to look like this. If you go to your settings button here, you can go to family profiles. So this is my account. And under the family profiles, you should be able to add up to 5 additional family profiles for your family or friends. You can create accounts for them. And then that way, if you're creating this for kids, you should be able to go to their names and you should be able to see what language they're learning, how much time they're spending learning the language, and then also a little bit about their progress. So it's a great tool for family homeschool parents who want to kind of keep track of what their kids are learning. So I highly recommend you to utilize those family profiles. And like I said, for every profile, you can add up to 5 additional family profiles. And then the last thing, American Sign Language, you can, access it through Mango. One of the cool things with American Sign Language is that I have it open here. The cool features that I just kind of wanted to show you. Oh, I need to log in again. I'm sorry, it kicked me out. Is that it has these having a lot of technical issues today. Hold on. The cool thing with American Sign Language is that they have this cool feature that's called the Magic Mirror, where you should be able to, let me see here. You should be able to, I'm sorry, it locked me out, so now that's why it's giving me an issue here. You should be able to turn on your camera and then that way you can like compare your, when you're doing the sign language, you compare it to the person who's teaching you the sign language. So let me just log out and log back in so I can show you what I'm talking about. Let's see, that's not it. I apologize. Okay, there you go. All right, so let me show you what I'm talking about. So you see myself here in the right, and then here's the person doing the sign language. So that way, when I'm practicing sign language, I can kind of see what I'm doing, right? Because when you learn just a regular language, you should be able to like, record yourself like the voice comparison tool and see where you're might be not pronouncing things correctly. But with sign language, it's a silent language, right? You can't pronounce, you're not pronouncing anything. So this is a great way, a great tool to kind of see and make sure that you're pronouncing things correctly, or that you're, signing things correctly, I should say. And there's a lot of cool things with American Sign Language, just like Mango, where you can also learn about, let me go back. They have vocabulary, they have role play, they have homework that you can do, and then they will grade the homework. They have same thing, food. You can learn about food, directions, shopping. They have culture notes. They have grammar notes, just like Mango. They have a lot of cool things to kind of help you learn sign language and be able to communicate.
All right. Thank you very much. And thank you everyone who hung out with us until the end. I'm sorry we went over a little bit longer than we expected. But thank you for joining us today, everyone, and have a very
Thank
good
you, everyone.
afternoon.